I'm in Mallorca. I've just ridden the 2017 Yamaha MT-09. It's only a year since the last version was launched, but Yamaha's MT-09 is back again with updates for 2017. It's had a restyling with 2 headlamps now instead of 1, like the MT-10. It's got a reshaped tail unit, a 12 LED backlight and a single-sided number plate holder mounted on the swing arm. There are new radiator cowls. It's got larger air scoops on either side of the tank, which look nice but don't actually do anything. The engine complies with Euro 4 emission limits and still makes 115 horsepower and 64.5 pound-foot. The ergonomics have been altered slightly, making the seat 5mm higher, but still low enough for someone of 5'9", me, to easily get both feet flat on the ground. The biggest changes are to suspension and equipment. It's now got separate damping control in the forks, with a rebound adjuster on the right leg and a new compression adjuster on the left, plus adjustable preload.
There's nothing wrong with the suspension for the money, which is kind of what you would say about the whole bike.
It's also gained a quickshifter for upshifts, and it's got an assist and slipper clutch. The quickshifter seems like the best upgrade to me. As a triple, the MT-09 has a really good combination of mid-range and top end, and a quickshifter seems to make the most of it. Let the revs climb to near the 11,300 RPM red line, knock it up a gear with the throttle open, and the power barely drops off, giving you seamless acceleration, punctuated by the odd bar wobble as the front wheel skips off the ground. Do it lower in the range, and you still get constant acceleration, although the higher the revs, the smoother the changes. It sounds great too. Meanwhile, the new slipper clutch takes care of back torque, so the rear doesn't lock after downshifts. You know, with all that torque, you would expect back torque on clumsy downshifts, but the slipper clutch does reduce that quite a lot. So, you know, today on quite slippery roads, I was, as I tend to, making clumsy downshifts, and it kind of smooths it all out, like almost as if, you know,
I know what I'm doing. Anyone would think, oh, I know what I'm doing. You can switch it off as well, actually. You can switch the quick shifter off. I don't really understand the need for that, because if you don't want to use it, you just don't use it. You don't need to switch it off. You continue to use the clutch and shift upwards as normal. And that the quick shifter does is for upshifts, not downshifts. But because you can switch it off, you've got this green light, tells you when it's on. This green light saying QS there. So in the corner of your eye, or at the bottom of your vision, you have to look down to see it. So well, that's not true, but you know, when you catch a glimpse of it, you think you're in neutral, and you're not.
The assist part makes the lever 20% easier to pull according to Yamaha, and it did feel light on the wrist all day. The rear locked only once on a downshift on a slippery patch of road, and it was really slippery. On the descent from a mountain, parts of it were wet and also green with moss.
There's kind of green stuff around now that you can just see it.
We passed a car that had slid off the road into a ditch, the occupants out and making slow down gestures at us, and my rear tyre kept sliding out of corners despite a cautious throttle hand, a ginger lean angle and the bike's traction control, which I had in level 1. I should probably have had it in level 2, offering more intervention. At one point, braking for a corner, not all that hard, the front locked up in a straight line. I was videoing, but unfortunately you can't quite make out what happens from the onboard footage because the bars are just out of frame. They went sideways for an instant and I may have sworn into the mic. I felt like the ABS didn't intervene, and I wonder if a very slippery surface can stop the front so suddenly that the ABS can't keep up. On other occasions I did feel it intervening with a pulse through the lever. From their power, you wouldn't guess the brakes were those of a budget price machine. The 4-pot front calipers have loads of bite, and the suspension also belies the price. The forks, on their standard settings, are the same as before according to Yamaha. The settings were stiffened up slightly for our morning ride, with 4 extra compression steps at the front and a rotation of rebound and 1 step of preload at the back.
They did adjust it slightly because apparently the standard setting is for a rider who is 75 kilograms, not 175 kilograms, Jesus. But that would be as much as the bike, wouldn't it? 75 kilograms and 1.70 m tall. And we're all a bit heavier than that. So they stiffened things up, only ever so slightly, for the morning ride. And then at lunch turned it back to standard suspension settings.
Both ends coped well with twisty roads, hard braking and acceleration, and provided all-day comfort. After lunch, we reverted to the standard settings and the forks became slightly softer, more ready to dive when braking, a tiny bit more so anyway. The shock felt perhaps a tad bouncy at times, but you may well be able to adjust that out with more rebound damping. The bike itself feels narrow, lightweight and quick to change direction, the leverage of the wide bars amplifying the pressure applied by your hands. Despite its extra cylinder, the MT-09 barely seems any bigger than the MT-07. The riding modes and traction control are as before, except now, when you switch the ignition off and on again, it remembers your choices, unless you had traction control off altogether, in which case it reverts to level 1. There are 3 modes offering a progressively more aggressive throttle response, and to switch between them you just press a button and close the throttle and your new selection appears on the diamond-shaped digital dash. The initial response on opening the throttle feels a bit snatchy in an urban environment. In the softest mode it's smoother, but then the torque response feels comparatively sluggish. But you can't have everything, I suppose. But you can have a very good, all-round, competent bike at a very good price. You still can't properly see the numbers on the rev counter because it points at the wrong angle, too low. That's my only other gripe. The MT-09, it's one of those machines that I can honestly say I would buy myself if I was looking for the best naked bike available for 7 or 8 grand, or maybe just the best bike at that price.
That's what this bike does so well. It's a really competent, really good naked bike, or just an all-rounder at a really competitive price. It was 7,349, it's now 7,799. I think with the things that have been added to it, those technical upgrades and the restyling with more kind of MT tenor-like headlights and a slightly different back end, there was a possibility, I think, that it could have been more than that. Still seems like a really competitive price, a really good bike at a really good price.